How was the city of Venice built on water 1,000 years ago? There were no roads, no land, and no clean drinking water, yet the Venetians turned it into the most powerful city. But how was all of this possible? The barbarians and the Huns were nomadic tribes from northern Europe who took advantage of the weakening of the Roman Empire and attacked these islands. The situation was so dire that living on these soft islands became their only option. About 5 kilometers from the coast, there were more than 150 small marshy islands, and their conditions were all the same. During this time, a person was sinking into the ground. To save himself, he stuck his boat's oar into the ground, and after going several feet down, it became solid. This gave them the idea that eventually became the foundation of Venice City. A few kilometers away, where present-day Croatia is, tree trunks were brought from the forests there and hammered into the marshy islands. After going about 5 meters deep, these trunks would anchor into the solid earth. They were hammered in close together to form a stable platform. After inserting the piles, the upper part was cut and leveled, and wooden planks were laid on top to evenly distribute the load on the piles. To raise the foundation above the water level, special limestone blocks were placed. The combination of stone blocks on top and 5-meter-long wooden piles below was enough to create a strong foundation. The wooden trunks, now underwater, expanded and tightened together, leaving no air gaps between them. This is why the piles in Venice, which were inserted nearly 1,000 years ago, still perfectly support the weight of the city. After laying the foundation, the construction of buildings began. The Venetians used bricks to build their homes, and to keep the buildings light, no home was allowed to be more than 3 stories high. Special mortar made with limestone powder was placed between the bricks so that the walls were strong yet flexible. Floors and inner walls were made from wooden planks that were held together with iron rods from the outside. This idea became very famous among the Venetians, and soon the islands were filled with homes in this manner. The biggest need in Venice was now connecting these islands. For the first 500 years, these islands were not connected. But as the population grew and trade increased, Venice became a business hub known as Rialto. To connect the islands, Venice's first stone bridge was built using the same technique used for constructing thousands of homes. Over 12,000 wooden piles were placed along the banks of the river, and on top of them, an arch bridge weighing 10,000 tons was constructed. This bridge was so successful that stone bridges built in the same way began appearing all over Venice. Even today, these bridges can withstand the weight of people. The pedestrian path is completely separate from the canals, and the biggest advantage is that anyone can easily disembark from a boat at any point and quickly reach their home. Soon, Venice became the most powerful and richest city in Europe, and the main reason was its location. On the map, it is located at the end of the Adriatic Sea, which connects directly to the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean Sea connects Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. Even today, sea routes are considered the easiest and cheapest way to transport goods. Ships could easily come to the end of the Adriatic Sea, where Venice is located. From Venice, cheap cargo ships would be available to send goods between Western and Eastern Europe. This business activity made the Venetians very wealthy. Seeing this, people from nearby countries also began settling in Venice, and the population grew rapidly. As the population grew, the demand for drinking water increased significantly. Though Venice is surrounded by water, it is salty seawater that cannot be consumed. Drinking water was brought to Venice from the mainland by filling drums and loading them onto boats. However, when the population reached 170,000, there was a water shortage. For this, there were parts of the islands where no construction had occurred. These areas had deep pits dug to collect rainwater. And the walls of these pits were made waterproof with mud and mortar. You might think that rainwater was stored directly in these pits, but the Venetians' thinking was more advanced than that. They built wells in these pits and surrounded them with sand and stones, then tiled the top and leveled the surface. Small holes were left on the surface through which rainwater could enter. The water, passing through sand and stones, would filter and purify itself, making it safe to drink. This filtration system worked based on this principle, and it continues to function today, but even then, there was a big issue in Venice. Normally, cities have underground sewer lines to carry waste away from the city, but Venice had no ground. In the 16th century, the Venetians created canals for waste collection, which emptied directly into the canals. These canals were built above the normal level of the canals so that liquid waste would immediately fall into the canals, while solid waste would stay in the drain. During high tide, when the canal level rose, the water would carry away the solid waste from the drain into the sea. High and low tides occurred twice a day, and this system kept the drains and canals clean. The sea water entering Venice twice a day also helped disinfect the canals. Today, Venice still uses this sewage system, and astonishingly, the engineering techniques used to build Venice 1,000 years ago still work perfectly. The building foundations, canals, bridges, and sewage systems are still operational. Venice is the only city in the world where there are no cars or motorbikes. Every year, 6 million people visit Venice, but the local population is less than 50,000.